The internet is full of fictional scary stories and movies alike, but what I find more terrifying than these are the true scary stories that happen to real people like you and me every day. Here are 3 terrifying true stories. On July 12, 2021, Richard Jesse left his home in Nome, Alaska, and headed out into the wilderness for a few nights in the great outdoors. Richard had planned on staying in a small shack in a mining camp, and all seemed to be going well at first. This was until Richard came face to face with a grizzly bear. Richard fought off the bear, shooting at it with his pistol, but unfortunately, the bear wasn't quite done with him yet. According to reports, the bear had dragged him into the river nearby, and Richard thought that this was the end. Luckily, he managed to escape yet again, but for the next week, the bear came back to his cabin and taunted him. He told the Nome Nugget, "The bear came out of nowhere. It rolled my ATV and trailer over like it was a toy car. I was in shock. Hypothermic." By the end of the ordeal, the grizzly bear had torn off the door to the shack, broken the windows, and clawed at the cabin walls. As the days dragged on, Richard became low on supplies and even lower on ammunition. By the time of his rescue, he had just 2 rounds left. Then a miracle happened. The Coast Guard was flying from Kotzebue to Nome when at the last minute they decided to change their flight path to avoid some clouds. As they were passing over the mining camp, they saw a man waving both of his arms in the air and a handsome sign on top of the shack that read, SOS. The Coast Guard immediately landed and came to Richard's aid as he explained to them the details of his ordeal. He told the Coast Guard that he hadn't slept since he had gotten out there on July 12, 2021, because he had been harassed by a grizzly bear. He was also down to his last 2 rounds and meager supplies. The Coast Guard noticed that Richard had injuries to his legs and torso and requested that an ambulance meet them in Nome. The good news is that Richard was able to walk from the helicopter into the ambulance, and he received the medical treatment he required the same night. Things could have ended very differently for Richard though, with Lieutenant AJ Hammock telling the Daily Mail, "You could tell he was starting to come off the adrenaline. I think he started to realize what had happened. If we would have been just the next river over, we would have totally missed him." A Scottsdale, Arizona police officer doing a routine patrol at around 12:20 a.m. on August 17, 2020, heard the cries of a man coming from the El Dorado Aquatic and Fitness Center. Bewildered, the officer called back and tried to locate the source of the cries, scouring through the park. However, after being unable to find the noise, he called for backup, and soon, more officers were on the scene to help in the search. A few hours after the first officer had heard the man's cries, they managed to find the source, which led them to a large hollow steel support pipe on the side of a water slide. Confused but also determined to free the man stuck inside, they called for firefighters and other agencies to help rescue the man. But as the hours dragged on, they realized that it was too late. In a statement to the press, the Scottsdale Police Department said, "He soon became unresponsive and was tragically determined to be deceased." It then took several more hours to dismantle the structure to the point that a body could be recovered. When the man was eventually recovered, he was identified as 31-year-old Ryan Kelly, who at the time of his death was homeless. With this tragic conclusion to his life, his family were left without many answers, including why he had broken into the park and how he had become stuck in the pipe. Kevin Watts of the Scottsdale Police Department told Insider.com, "It wasn't an easy feat. It took some work to get down in there, which obviously would not be the first place that people would be looking to find someone because of its difficulty." After the news was announced on social media, Ryan's family began receiving taunting comments which greatly upset them. In the wake of Ryan's passing, a friend set up a GoFundMe page to help cover his funeral expenses, which was quickly completed. In the GoFundMe post, his friend wrote, "Ryan left this world, but will never leave our hearts. He was sweet, kind, and full of life." "33-year-old Tom and 28-year-old Eileen Lonergan of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, were young, in love, and optimistic about the future. In January 1998, the two had just finished up their service in the Peace Corps in Fiji and decided to stop off in Australia for a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Eileen was a keen diver and had gotten Tom into diving too. Knowing that they were near the Great Coral Reef, the two couldn't pass up this opportunity. Little did they know that this chance trip would end in tragedy. As the two arrived in Queensland, Australia, they prepared themselves for their scuba diving trip, wondering what incredible sights they would see. They booked their trip with the company Outer Edge, and on January 25th, 1998, they headed out to sea on what would be their last trip. The two donned their gear, along with the other 24 passengers, and delved into the sea, navigating and exploring the incredible coral reef below them. After diving for a while, Tom and Eileen ascended back to the surface of the water, ready to get back onto the boat for a much-needed rest. But as they got closer, they noticed that no one was around. They popped their heads above the water, swimming around in circles, hoping to catch sight of the boat, but there was no one. The two could have attempted to swim back to shore, but they were 25 miles out and unsure of which direction the shore was. With no boat or humanity in sight, the two had no option but to wait and hope that someone would come looking for them. Unfortunately, it took 2 days for anyone on board to realize that they were missing, and it was only after their belongings were found did anyone realize the fatal mistake that had been made. By the time the two were reported missing and a search was launched, it was far too late. The Lonergans had been at sea for 2 days without food, water, or a raft. To make matters worse, the Lonergans were in shark-infested waters, and from the get-go, searchers knew that there was a high chance that the two had been attacked by sharks. During the search for the couple, a diving slate washed up on shore along with some of the Lonergans' diving gear. The slate bore a chilling message saying, "To anyone who can help us, we've been abandoned on Agincourt Reef, January 25th, 1998, 3 p.m. Please help us. Come to rescue us before we die. Help." Unfortunately, this was the only piece of evidence that came to surface. And since the fateful day in 1998, Tom and Eileen Lonergan have never been seen or heard from again. Some people believe that Tom and Eileen took their own lives, or were the victims of a murder-suicide. According to sources, Tom had been depressed, and Eileen had written letters in her diary that they had a death wish in the weeks before their disappearance. This is something that both families refuted. Another theory is that the couple staged their disappearance in order to start a new life, but this seems like an extreme way to disappear. The most plausible theory is that Tom and Eileen were attacked by sharks, or died from exposure from being in the water for 2+ days. The skipper of the boat, Jeffrey Nair, was charged with unlawful killings of Tom and Eileen. However, whilst the court had found him to have been negligent, he was found not guilty on the grounds of manslaughter. Outer Edge was fined as a result of this, but sadly, no further charges were brought forth against Nairs or the company concerning Tom and Eileen's disappearance. That is it for this one. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. This will help my channel grow. If you have a future story suggestion, or would like to contact me directly, you can do so by emailing me at creepyunsolvedmedia@gmail.com. I look forward to your comments below.